Hello everyone and welcome back into our dearest friend and dearest playlist on this channel, which is making a boring engine into a tuner dream engine. Yes, we have created a lot of crazy engines in the past, to tune them from very boring stock setups from the 70s, 60s, wherever period they came from, and made them super high tuned with good amount of power and torque. So in this video, this is not an exception. So we will be testing, and of course we will be tuning this beautiful and this legendary reliable beast here, the 1964 for the 4.9 liter inline 6, or the legendary 300 cubic inch as they call it, inline 6.4. So of course, before we start to crack on with everything else and the specs and everything, enjoy the video. That's my number one priority. And of course, hit that like button, get subscribed if you are new to the channel, and of course you can watch the boring into a tuner dream engine videos. I'm gonna put the link, I don't know, maybe here in the middle or maybe here on the side. I think here on the side. Alright, so let's start with this engine. So this engine was produced in 1964, according to Ford F-150 truck website. I got all of these specs from this website: the bore and stroke, the compression ratio, and the carburetor specs, and the exhaust and everything else. But I'm not saying it's extremely close to the real deal, but I'm gonna say stock-ish. I'm gonna say like this. So let's start with the spec. So as you can see, it's an inline 6 engine made from cast iron. The bore on this engine is 101.6 millimeters, and the stroke is 101, with a total of 4,913 cc engine, inline 6 of course. The engine uses a pushrod system, 2 valves per cylinder of course, cast iron cylinder head, nothing special. But what makes this engine extremely durable is the forged internals. The engine that I've chosen, because this engine was made all the way to 1996, and the version that I've chosen is the one with the forged internals. As I've mentioned, I got all of the specs from the Ford F-150 truck website. So basically this is a Ford pickup truck engine, very durable, and I've seen and I've read a lot of the comments from people saying that they did hundreds and hundreds of thousand miles on these engines and they are still running smoothly without any single problem. But of course, with good maintenance. If you ignore the engine, yes, it will break down, but if you have a good scheduled maintenance on it, it will live, I think, forever, because the design of it is extremely durable, and that's what I love about this engine so far. So this engine came with forged crankshaft, heavy-duty forged pistons, and heavy-duty forged connecting rods and forged pistons. Zero quality, well, no need to push the quality. So as you can see, I made the engine. I made this is a clone version. So the original engine I made it in 1964, but I had to make another clone in 2018 so we can start tweak on it. So let's say like you had this engine right now, and it's a pretty decent engine, very low mileage. Maybe it's maybe the pickup truck is stored, or maybe you have rebuilt the engine, because well, forged internals are, well, the best internals to tweak on. And we have a comment, that's cool. Alright, so let's leave the internals alone. The original compression ratio on this beast is 8.9 to 1. On this version in particular, the cam profile is decent, normal, economical 25. Of course, this is a classic engine, so no need for PVT because this is 2018. Naturally aspirated, of course, and the engine is running a single barrel carburetor. Only one carburetor, only a single barrel, single carburetor. Yes, so the engine is pretty choked. I promise you, the engine is not breathing like, let's say, half its potential. Really, just by changing the carburetor, you will free a lot of horses just by changing the carburetor. That's it. And of course, according to Automation Game, because as we all know, Automation Game, it's not really realistic to real life. So of course, the engine in real life is not using 98 super leaded because, well, it's expensive back then. Of course, the engine is using regular leaded back then, but because Automation Game developers, I don't know what they did with the game, but it's not really realistic. And to put the same compression ratio and the same setup from the same specs from the real engine, I had to use 98 instead. So yeah, excuse this for a moment because, well, automation game is not really realistic, and I had to push a little too much fuel, like 13.2, to make the engine run without a problem. Of course, all of these specs are in 1964, and I had to play with them a little bit to make it very similar to the real engine. But in 2018, of course, the peak power and the peak torque are a little bit different from the real engine, but the numbers are still same horsepower, same torque, and same specs. Alright, so the engine is pretty decent, as you can see, and yes, plus 15 quality exhaust system, I know that, and plus 15 quality fuel system. That's how I made it in 1964, but moving it to 2018 made the production units and the engineering time to jump to the roof. But if I move this way back to 1964, this will be like in the 30s, which is acceptable. Alright, so let's say that you have this engine. It's 2018, you have this engine, you bought this engine, or maybe you have rebuilt this engine and you want to tweak on it. So the first thing you need to do is of course change the camshaft and you know, add more RPM, play with the ignition time. But no, all of these things are just expensive. But the thing that will really make an impact on this engine, as I have mentioned before, is the carburetor. Because let me show you the airflow or the flow graph, the flow bench. So yeah, check out how the intake is restricted by the single barrel carburetor. So by changing it, because of course you can go twin, you can go triple, but why go with all of these problems? Because if you want to put a, you know, twin or triple carburetors, you have to deal with throttle linkages, because you have 3 carburetors and you want to link them all together. So when you put your foot hard down, or when you put your foot on the throttle, all these 3 will open together, which will take a lot of money, a lot of engineering, and a lot of fabricating. So the simplest option is to go with just a single 4-barrel carburetor. Just go to any auto store and purchase a 4-barrel carburetor, and, you know, modify your intake manifold a little bit to fit it. It will work perfectly, and let me show you the difference. This is a single barrel. Are you ready for the 4-barrel? Alright, check it out. Check it out. Just by changing from a single to 4-barrel, we added 27 horsepower. 27 horsepower and 10 pound-feet of torque just by changing the carburetor, and the engine got super more efficient and is running on lower octane. Yes, it requires a little service, because, well, it's a 4-barrel, requires a little attention, but the engine is running smoother, the throttle response is higher. Yeah, reliability is dropped a little bit and got a little heavier because, well, it's a bigger carburetor. So, and yes, it's got a little expensive because modern carburetors, or because this one is plus 15 quality. Let me get it to 0. So yeah, wow, check out the difference. So with plus 15 quality, this used to be $2,000, and now if I drop it to 0 quality, it will become cheaper. So in 2018, yes, you can buy actually a cheap, decent carburetor these days. I've seen a lot of roadkill shows that you can go to any auto store or speed shop and, you know, can buy a decent, you know, cheap carburetor by Holley or whatever company that makes them these days. So yeah, it's a good carburetor, serves very well and no restriction whatsoever. And now, because we have extra airflow, we can actually raise the RPM limit. Let's see by how much. 4,800, 5,000 RPM, 200 horsepower. That's nice. We started in live with 170 horsepower, and now we are pushing 200 horsepower just by changing the carburetor into a modern 4-barrel carburetor and raising the RPM. Well, because the engine can take extra RPM, can go all the way to 6,900 RPM. Alright, so let's hear how this beast sound now. So of course, according to automation game, we used to use, we used to burn the 98 octane fuel, the leaded one. So we have to change into a modern engine, a modern fuel without lead. So let's go with 98 unleaded and check out the difference between the emissions, because leaded fuel is super high toxic, and now we are running a little bit, eco-friendly. when it comes to emissions only. So since we have a lot of octane room, let's say that you are living in a country that you can buy 98, so now you can actually lower the air fuel ratio a little bit and increase the ignition timing a little bit to add more horsepower, like so if you want, but I don't want to decrease the peak. So 67 seems very decent, and you can actually lower the ignition the air fuel ratio. This way you can have much more efficiency. As you can see, 16.8. All this is good, right? All this is like a decent, first shot by tuning the engine, and the next thing you can do is of course choose a better flowing exhaust system. So let's buy like an off-the-shelf or an aftermarket exhaust headers, tubular headers. These are like production headers with high flow, with much higher airflow, and let's say 2.5 inch exhaust diameter. Let's tweak the engine with a catalytic converter to reduce emissions, and let's choose let's have like a straight through muffler to make the engine to make the exhaust to sound much better. Yeah, 2.2 inch will work actually. Alright, so 2.2 inch. So what we added is extra 13 horsepower. Yeah, we have lost a little bit of torque because we have chosen a bigger diameter exhaust system, but now it will sound and it will perform much better. And yes, so I think the next setup to go with is to change the camshaft. Now all of these things that I'm making right now is trying to keep it stock or semi-stock, not changing anything hard on the engine, like going EFI or going turbo. But don't worry, we'll go to all of these things in a minute. So changing the camshaft into a much more high quality and much modern camshaft will actually move your power so high at the high RPM, at the top of the RPM range. Yes, you will lose a lot of low end torque, but you will gain so much more. Let's try and push the torque. I want to go 300 pound-feet of torque, but yeah, I don't think it will happen. So let's stick to 250 horsepower, mid-range, normal, close to sport. So this way your camshaft will not cost you so much money, a decent camshaft, but not much expensive. Now you can actually tweak the ignition timing to make the power to peak much later. Push the RPM limit to 6,000 and check out the difference. Different carburetor, different exhaust system, and different camshaft, and check out the difference. 297 pound-feet of torque and 251 horsepower. Absolutely beautiful. So remember, we started in live with a 170 horsepower engine and 284 pound-feet of torque. Yes, the torque we haven't gained like super amount of torque, only 13.5 pound-feet, but the horsepower we gained so much. We gained extra 80 horsepower just by changing the camshaft, the carburetor, and the exhaust system. That's how good the parts are in 2018. Of course, we have tweaked the ignition timing, and of course if you want to go a little bit efficient, you can actually reduce the air fuel ratio. This way you can actually gain much more fuel efficiency this way. Yes, you will lost like 2 horsepower, but this way the engine will run much more efficient. That's cool, and lower emissions too. So it's a pretty decent engine now. 250 horsepower from a 1964 engine, very good, really good. But now we have two options: stick to the carburetor and turbocharge it, or we can go EFI. And I think these days EFI kits are cheap. So if you want to go from a single carburetor or immediately to EFI, you can do that. You can buy like Holley, I don't know, Dominator or something like this. I don't know what's the part number or what's the name of it. So yeah, you can buy these EFI kits. Let's try and switch to EFI. No, not EFI, EFI. So switching from a carburetor to EFI, check out the difference. The engine can run on 91 octane fuel. The engine has super high efficiency, and the emissions are extremely low. That is awesome. That is really awesome. Wow. Wow, EFI is really good. So this way we can actually run the engine on 91 regular cheap fuel, but let's keep it on 95 so we can have, extra room to tweak it. And also we gained 5 extra horsepower, and the torque is very good, 309 pound-feet of torque on the same camshaft. That is awesome. That is really good. EFI is very surprising. So let's see, should we actually add more emission timing in? Wow, 260 horsepower, 263. Whoa, that is awesome. 264. Yes, so on 95 you can get 264. You can actually decrease the ignition, the air fuel ratio all the way to 15. Whoa, you can run the engine super efficient. Check out the efficiency, 22%. Wow, and the emissions are really low now. Wow, that is a really good setup. Yes, we gained extra 7 horsepower and much more higher torque, but the engine is running on cheaper fuel. When the engine is running super efficient, you will gain so much fuel mileage. And check out the throttle response, 50 points. It used to be 20 or 16 or something like this. That is amazing. Let's see, the exhaust. Is the exhaust restricting? Yes, a little bit. So if you want to gain extra horsepower, you can actually go with 2.5-inch exhaust diameter, or 2.8 if you want. And this way you will gain, like, check it out, 270 horsepower. This is all naturally aspirated. Yes, we have lost a little fuel efficiency, but it's still in the 20s. That is superb. Awesome. Yeah, you can see the pistons moving is not really consistent because the blower motion is off. I have to restart the games to enable the blower motion or blow effect, whatever the name of it. So yeah, the engine is running actually very decent. Wow, 300 pound-feet of torque. Now your pickup truck will actually move very nicely. That is really awesome. And yes, we are not really near the capabilities of this engine, but don't worry, we will go that way. I promise you, we will go that way. So everything is running decent, everything is running very perfect, same compression ratio, same everything. But now let's try and go nuts for a moment. So let's decrease the ignition timing, like let's say 35. Increase the air fuel ratio to 13.5. Yes, the engine is not efficient anymore, but all these things are just to welcome the snail power. Yes, we are welcoming the turbo power here. So let's try and tweak it. Let's have like a decent, efficient turbocharger. So super AR ratio, small turbine to spool the turbo much sooner. And if we want to stick to 300 horsepower range, we can go like this. We can go with 13 psi of boost. Perfect. We can go with, so the turbo right now can spool at 1800 rpm, which is super efficient. Alright, this way we are having an efficient turbo. That is good. Let's try and build an efficient engine. So the compressor is increasing but not really getting efficient, so let's stick to the 20s. No, I want to build an efficient turbo, not a crappy engine. Alright, so no, let's leave it on 12 psi of boost. That is good. Alright, so 12 psi of boost. Yes, like this 320 horsepower, but check out the torque, 443 pound-feet of torque. Now we can tweak the engine because we have decreased the ignition timing so little. Now we can actually go nuts, like 3,333 horsepower, 5,400 RPM. We can decrease the fuel ratio. Yep, that is perfect. 5,700 RPM. But before we judge that, let's go to the exhaust system. 3-inch or 3.5-inch exhaust. No, 3.2-inch exhaust diameter, or let's say 82.5 millimeters should do the trick. Yeah. So what we have here is 22.7% of fuel efficiency, which is super. Yes, we have lost a little bit of throttle response, and the engine, got a little bit less reliable because, well, it's turbocharged. You have more sensors and more things to worry about. But look at the torque, 462 pound-feet of torque. Now that is a decent torque indeed. That is so decent. And turbo can kicks in early, like 1,800 RPM or 1,900. So this is like the drivability range, because when you are driving your pickup truck, you will be driving it like from 1,000 RPM to 3,000 max, and that's where the turbo works. That's where all the torque is. And you will have like 250 horsepower at this range. From 1,000 to 3,000, you will have like 250 horsepower and all of the torque, which is awesome, very efficient. Wow, I want to put it in the same pickup truck. I want to put this engine in the same pickup truck and see how it will actually drive. It looks very, 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 very tough, and it definitely has all of the power and all of the torque to haul everything. And it's very, very quiet. It's responsive. It's smooth. It's still reliable. It's amazing. I'm really interested in this engine. So you can actually tweak this engine to be a torque monster, or to be an efficient monster, or to be, of course, a sports engine. But this engine was designed from the factory to be, a torquey, reliable beast, not, to go racing or to go drifting or to do any kind of sport event. No, this engine was designed from the factory in the 60s to be a pickup truck engine, to put, to haul cargo in the back, and to be used like every day, non-stop, for eternity. That is really awesome, and I want to keep the engine like this. I don't want to put any kind of performance parts on it, but I want to tweak it more to make it much more efficient. Like, I want to play with the I want to see if the yes, so tweaking this. So if you want to put like a high quality, what do you call it, camshaft in it, yes, this way you can actually have much higher torque, like 475 pound-feet of torque. That is awesome. Yeah, 23.5% on fuel efficiency. That is good. That is good. I want to put this engine in that pickup truck and see what's what. So I'm gonna decrease the RPM to 5,700, because the power peaks at 5,300. You will have extra 400 of blank red line. The exhaust system is very good. The engine is super quiet, even with a straight-through muffler, a single straight-through muffler. But a turbo works everything. That is amazing. I want to try it in. So what do you think about this engine? Tell me in the comment section below. I apologize if this video was a bit long enough, but what do you think about the end result? Did you like my setup? Torque monster for the same pickup truck, the pickup truck that we have used in the past, or Would you like to have it like a sport monster, like a high power monster? But it can work. But of course, since we are using pushrod, a pushrod camshaft or a pushrod system here, you won't actually have very high horsepower. You will have very good torque, but not very good horsepower. But right now the engine has like nearly 350 horsepower, 346. That is good. That is really good. But the only restriction on this engine is the setup of the camshaft, the setup of the valve terrain. But the engine works like a charm. So thank you so much for watching. I want to hear from you in the comment section below. What do you think about this engine? So if you have any idea or any request, like for the next boring engine into a tuner dream engines next video, I would love to hear from you in the comment section below. So think about a boring engine that was made in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s, even right now in 2018. If you have any boring engine that you want me to tweak it to perfection, you can actually tell me in the comment section below, and I will search for the specs, and of course I will do it in the next video. So thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now, my friends.